Now, there's one media story this week you can't have missed. Serious allegations have surfaced about erstwhile BBC DJ and TV star Sir Jimmy Savile. An ITV documentary due out tonight has testimony from women alleging they were assaulted by Savile as girls. We'll hear from the ex-policeman who's made the film and from the BBC's Director of Editorial Policy on why the BBC dropped a Newsnight programme containing similar allegations. And nearly 10 years ago, this short broadcast set off quite possibly the worst of all BBC crises.
It is now 7 minutes past 6. The government's facing more questions this morning over its claims about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Our defence correspondent is Andrew Gilligan. This in particular...
That infamous 607 Today programme two-way between John Humphreys and reporter Andrew Gilligan about sexed up documents and the case for war in Iraq. The tragic death of Gilligan's source, government scientist Dr David Kelly, and the Hutton inquiry that followed cost the BBC its chairman and director general. Now the editor of the programme, at the time, Kevin Marsh, has told his side of the story. We'll hear from him. And Al Jazeera has established an enviable reputation for independence and impartiality in its reporting of events, but critics now question whether that's still true. Al Anstey is managing director of Al Jazeera English, and we'll hear from him. And if you've thoughts about anything you hear in the show, it's hashtag R4MediaShow if you use Twitter, or by all means email us via our website. But first, to a story that, as I say, you really can't have missed. The claims by a growing number of women that they were victims of sexual assaults up to and including rape by one-time DJ and BBC TV star Jimmy Savile. The centrepiece of the story is a documentary to be shown on ITV tonight. The BBC's been drawn into the row though, first because some of the abuse is alleged to have occurred on corporation premises, whilst rumours, to put it no more strongly than that, concerning Savile's alleged activities apparently circulated widely but were ignored. And secondly, because Newsnight was working on a similar story about Jimmy Savile, but dropped it, leaving media land awash with questions about corporate jiggery-pokery. Newsnight's editor, Peter Rippon, has firmly rejected any such suggestion, insisting that the story simply didn't come up to proof. In a moment, we'll hear from the BBC's Director of Editorial Policy and Standards, David Jordan, but first I'm joined by the man behind the ITV film tonight, former police detective Mark Williams-Thomas. Mark, many thanks indeed for coming.
Good afternoon.
Just help me out, how did you come to be doing this story in the first place?
Well, someone spoke to me and said to me, had I ever heard any rumours with regards to Jimmy Savile, and the field that I work in is child protection and sexual abuse, and I had heard rumours, but nothing more than that, and of course I wasn't working in the media industry when he was around. So I looked at it, and indeed around the same time, I was working with Newsnight on another programme, and we ended up in discussion around Jimmy Savile, and they said to me, bearing in mind you worked in the field, and indeed I started the Jonathan King investigation, would you give us an interview on the programme in respect of how people in positions of trust abuse children? And I said, yes, absolutely. And we then got into a position where eventually they'd done some inquiries, they'd got to a position, and they came back to me and said, actually, we're not running ahead, we're not going ahead with the programme, and so I never gave them that interview.
Okay. Do you know what happened at Newsnight?
I don't know ultimately what happened. All I can tell you is what I think is in the public domain, which is for editorial reasons, the programme wasn't broadcast.
Right. In terms of the information that they had, was it the same as what you have in your film tonight, or have you made significant progress since, or what?
Well, all I can tell you is in relation to the people in our programme, is that none of the people in our programme were in the Newsnight programme. They are completely different people.
Right. Okay. So it would be fair to say that in terms of, if there's a comparison to be made between what Newsnight had and what you have going to be broadcasting tonight, you've got more. It's more broadly based and it involves more people.
I don't know in the entirety what Newsnight had. All I can tell you is in relation to our programme is the people that we've spoken to are not people who have appeared in the Newsnight programme.
Now, Jimmy Savile, it stands to reason, is dead and can't answer for himself. He can't. These allegations can't be tested against whatever he might say. Are you comfortable that you have got somewhere close to the truth here?
What I have set out right from the very beginning was to undertake a very detailed investigation, indeed an investigation which both uncovered facts but was checked throughout the process, and we worked very closely with the ITV lawyer throughout to examine and look at that evidence, and I've presented in such a way as though it were a criminal investigation. So I believe that it stands up to scrutiny, and if of course Jimmy Savile were here, and it's very sad that he isn't here because of course he's not here to face those allegations, but if he were here here, I believe that those allegations would stand up to him. And indeed, we took it to a Queen's Counsel barrister who looked at that evidence. And on the basis of that, he said that there was some independence between the witnesses and the women coming forward.
Why do you think they've stayed silent for so long? I mean, all this has only emerged, as far in public anyway, since his death.
Well, that's not entirely true, because in 2007 there was an allegation made to the police. The police have told us, Surrey police have told us, that a single person came forward with an allegation. We know that in fact 2 people gave statements to the police, and furthermore today we now know that Sussex police conducted an investigation in 2008 in relation to an adult who complained of sexual assault. So we do know that people went to the police previously. I think the wider context is that we know that children don't come forward and report allegations of sexual abuse, and furthermore the power and control that those individuals have over them is very influential. And don't forget, we were talking about someone who was a media icon in that era, and it's incredibly difficult to put that into the mix as well for them to talk out.
Okay, Mark Williams-Thomas, we'll come back to you if we get a moment. Now, so thanks for that. Now, David Jordan is the BBC's head of editorial policy. David, why did Newsnight drop their story?
I think there's a slight misconception in something that you said earlier, Steve, which is what Newsnight's investigation was actually about. I think Mark's alluded to it here. There was an investigation by the Surrey police in 2007 into the claims by people that they'd been subject to sexual assault by Jimmy Savile, and they looked into that. And we had an allegation made to Newsnight that investigation hadn't been conducted properly and had been dropped for wrong reasons. And the Newsnight investigation was into that investigation, as it were. It was never started out as an investigation into Jimmy Savile himself. It started out as an investigation into whether the Surrey police had dropped allegations.
But if you had prima facie evidence, or evidence at least, or serious allegations that this is what Jimmy Savile had been up to, I mean, irrespective of what the Crown Prosecution Service decided to do, and given what we now know Newsnight might have validly carried on, I mean, it should have been pursued. The public interest...
That all depends. That's an editorial decision for the editor of Newsnight or for any editor to make. What sort of story do they want to pursue? In this instance, they wanted to pursue a story about how the allegations of assault had actually been handled.
But do you not see that in public, people might be scratching their heads here, because they're going to say, hang on a second, there you are sitting on a story which on the face of it is about gross abuse allegedly committed by a TV, radio icon, and we're going to dance on the pinhead of whether or not the CPS did it properly.
Yeah, but the editor of Newsnight has already said in a blog that he's written on this subject that the reason why he didn't want to pursue that particular angle, i.e. the investigation into Savile himself, was because he thought the allegations were extremely old. Savile himself was now dead and therefore couldn't answer to them, and there was not in Newsnight's terms, as he saw them, a reason for continuing an investigation into the man himself as opposed to the institution he was looking at. And as it turned out, when they looked at the institution and what Surrey Police had done, it transpired that Surrey Police had actually done a perfectly good investigation, had presented evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service, and it was the Crown Prosecution Service who decided that the evidence wasn't sufficient to mount a prosecution.
My reading of it is that Newsnight they had one person on camera who made a series of allegations who I think is not in the ITV film but is appearing elsewhere at the moment. They also had spoken, I read, to as many as 10 witnesses and so on. Newsnight would have had evidence, presumably more evidence than the police would have had, because they had more to go on. Was this passed to the police?
No, I'm not sure that Newsnight believed it had any more evidence than Surrey Police actually had. So I'm not sure that there were suggestions of many more.
Right. Okay.
Because they were so specifically focused. I mean, you may say wrongly, had you been editor, you might have taken a different decision. But they were so clearly focused on the Surrey Police investigation that they didn't follow up in more general terms and do what Mark's done, which is laudable, which is to find a lot of other people who were subjected to the same abuse.
Do you see, though, that the other suspicion that is abroad is that because Savile was a BBC icon, because indeed BBC One were planning a major piece about him for just a couple of months hence around the Christmas period, a tribute piece and so on, there is a suspicion here of corporate jiggery-pokery. That Newsnight's programme was stopped because it would have been embarrassing and difficult for the BBC to deal with. So let me ask you this. Was Peter Ripner's decision referred to anybody else or discussed with anyone else higher up the tree?
No, it was not referred to anybody else, by which do you mean, did Peter Ribbon say, should I drop this piece? He absolutely didn't, as he makes clear in his blog, he didn't do that. He did discuss it with his immediate superiors, as one would normally do of an investigation of that sort.
So did Danny Cohen, the controller of BBC One, know anything about it?
I'm not aware that Danny Cohen knew anything about it, but he might have known
George Edwards, the controller of BBC, the head of BBC Vision at the time,
I'm not aware that he knew anything about it either, but it's not impossible that they knew it was happening. That's very different from being asked whether or not it should go ahead. It's very often the case that senior managers in the BBC know that things are going on, but they don't have a right to veto. And in particular, if you're talking about something that's being made by a news programme, the fact that the head of Vision, the Vision team, or anybody else knows about it, does not necessarily mean that they have any say in it whatsoever. In fact, I've never known a situation where they could have a say in what news did.
So given that we now expect to see significantly more allegations on ITV tonight, do you think the BBC's handled this properly? And as a journalist, do you regret the fact that the BBC's not doing this story?
Well, if I'd been the editor of News, would I have made a different decision? Who knows? I wasn't there at the time. I didn't have the evidence in front of me. Peter made a very honest decision about what he thought was the right thing to do. If you were there, would you have made the same decision? I don't know. We've both made decisions in our roles similar to this in our time. Who knows who would have made what decision? But he made an honest decision on the basis of what he wanted to do and didn't pursue those other allegations.
Okay. David Jordan, many thanks indeed. And that documentary is on ITV1 at 11:10 tonight. And in the meantime, if you thought about that, possibly the worst of all BBC crises.
It is now 7 minutes past 6. The government's facing more questions this morning over its claims about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Our defence correspondent is Andrew Gilligan. This in particular.
That infamous 607 and Director General. Now the editor of the programme, at the time, Kevin Marsh, has told his side of the story. We'll hear from him. And Al Jazeera has established an enviable reputation for independence and impartiality in its reporting of events. But now there's one media story this week you can't have missed. Serious allegations have surfaced about erstwhile BBC DJ and TV star Sir Jimmy Savile. An ITV documentary due out tonight has testimony from women alleging they were assaulted by Savile as girls. Today programme two-way between John Humphreys and reporter Andrew Gilligan about sexed up documents and the case for war in Iraq. The tragic death of Gilligan's source, government scientist Dr. David Kelly, and the Hutton inquiry that followed cost the BBC its chance. We'll hear from the ex-policeman who's made the film and from the BBC's Director of Editorial Policy on why the BBC dropped a Newsnight programme containing similar allegations. And nearly 10 years ago, this short broadcast set off quite